Well, when it comes to today's dish history, it's kind of like confusing because there's three versions of it in France, in the UK, and in USA. They have the same name, but they are completely different dishes. So today we're paying attention to the French one. It's made with some crème anglaise in the bottom. We have a poached meringue on top, garnished with some caramel and some toasted almonds. It's called Îles Flotante, floating island. It was actually my brother's favorite dessert, so today we'll dedicate this episode to him. But we are making two versions of it. We are going to make the classic, as we all know, but also I'm adventuring into making one vegan. How? We shall find out. So let's do it. Alright, so I'm going to start with the classic recipe and then we'll do the vegan adaptation after that. So let's do it.
Alright, so first we're gonna grab a medium-sized saucepan and we're gonna pour our regular milk into it and we're gonna place that on the heat. The idea is to get it warm, not boiling, just warm. In the meantime, I'm going to take a vanilla pod. You could also use some vanilla extract, whatever you have at home. I'm going to extract all the beautiful seeds that makes this delicious flavor, and I'm going to place them in the pod alongside the bean, and we're going to let that infuse for about 10 minutes. Next, I'm going to crack my eggs, and I want to separate the yolks from the whites. I've already shown you that techniques before, which is, I think, the best when you want to make egg whites because you want to keep them as pure as possible. Then I'm going to place them into my mixing bowl with the whisk attachment and add a pinch of salt, and we're going to start whisking them. We're going to break the egg white first, so we're going to put it on slow for about 30 seconds. Then I will increase the speed until they form some beautiful soft peak. At this point, I will add my sugar gradually. We don't want to break those beautiful whites. And then we're full stiff. I'm going to add my cornstarch, which will help holding its shape when we are going to cook them. I am now going to take them off the mixer and I'm going to give them a try to be sure I'm doing a proper job and the merchandise is correct.
We have a meringue and our milk is warm, not boiling, just warm. We're going to poach the meringue inside the milk. That would be the base of the Îles Flotante.
Alright, so now it's time to make those island float. So I'm going to take 2 spoons and make a canal. If you're not too sure about that techniques, feel free to just take some of the spoon and just dump it in the milk. That's absolutely okay. It'll be just as delicious. So you want to cook them for about 5 minutes. So you might want to rotate them after a minute or two and make sure they are cooked on all sides. And please make sure your milk is not boiling and is slightly warm. Once they're cooked, we're going to use a slotted spoon to remove as much milk as possible behind us. And we're going to place them on a plate to cool because at the end of the day, it's a cold dessert. So we'll do that and we'll move on to the next step.
Okay, so we have our little pillow cloud of egg whites meringue. So we're gonna let them cool down. We're gonna work on the crème anglaise, the almonds, we're gonna toast, and the caramel. Let's do that.
So first we're gonna work on the crème anglaise, or English custard as we call in this beautiful country. We're gonna make sure that we pass the milk we used to cook the egg whites and remove all the imperfection that we may have created. You want to make sure you have the same amount you started with, so you might want to top it up with more milk if necessary. Then we're going to place that back on the heat, but this time you want it to come to bubble. Not boiling, just, just that point. Then we're going to add some sugar to our egg yolks and we're going to whisk them, blanch them, which will require to use a bit of elbow grease. At this point, we're going to take some of the milk off the heat and we're going to add it to our mixture. You don't have to put the full pot. The idea is to loosen up and make sure that everything is combined and the sugar is starting to dissolve. And we're going to put that back into the pot, and bring it back to the stove. The idea is we want to cook it because it's very loose at this point and want it to be way more custardy. So I'm going to cook it on really low heat and you make sure that you always move that spatula so it doesn't curdle. When you're happy with the thickness, you're going to pass it once again to remove any imperfections. And then we're going to place that on the fridge to cool down. But you want to make sure that you actually put some plastic wrap up top because it may create a skin. So once you have that, we're going to move on to our next step. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our caramel. We're going to make a dry one for this particular recipe. So it's sugar only, no water, no nothing. And we're going to bring it to temperature until it becomes amber and nicely caramelized. I'm then going to place it on a cell pad or a parchment paper if you don't have one. And we're just going to kind of like create a shape so it's going to cool down a little bit faster. Now let's move on to the toasted almonds. So I'm going to use a non-stick pan, but you can use a regular pan. You can even toast them in the oven. It's really up to you. I actually do like to toast them like that. I don't know, I feel like I have more control. I can keep my eyes on them. So we wanted them to be golden brown, perfectly crunchy. Then I'm going to place them on my seal pad next to the caramel because I want them to cool down a little bit. Also make sure you don't burn your fingers while you touch the pan. That's silly. Then I'm going to place those almonds back into a bowl for later, and I'm going to remove the caramel off its sheet, breaking down into little pieces, and I'm going to put them in a bowl as well as for later when we are plating our first dessert. Now we can take a little break and work on the next one.
Alright, so we finished everything for the classic flotante. Now let's work on the vegan one.
So I guess I will not get a break after all. So in a medium saucepan, I'm going to place my plain-based milk. I'm using almond, but I would suggest use coconut. Then I'm going to place vanilla the same way as we did before. It's going to look very similar. Give it a little bit of a whisk, and then I'm going to let that bring to the heat. In the meantime, I'm going to place my sugar with my cornstarch into a bowl, as well as some turmeric to give that nice egg yolk color per se. Gonna give that another tiny whisk, and I'm gonna repeat the same process of bringing the milk to our mixture, and we're gonna whisk that up, and it's gonna start thicken right away. But it's not the right consistency just yet. So we're gonna place that back on the heat, and we're gonna cook it until it becomes nice and thick. That being said, we are making a sauce and not a brick, so don't overcook it. When you put it back on the heat, also make sure you're still moving that spatula around so it doesn't attach to the bottom. Once you've done so, we're going to put it back onto a bowl and we're going to pass it. Same idea, we're going to remove all the impurities and we're going to place another sheet of plastic over top and put it in the fridge until it's completely cooled down.
Alright, so now we're going to start working on the meringue, the vegan meringue. And how do we do that without eggs, you ask? Quick answer, chickpeas. The brine from chickpeas is called aquafaba. This is used a lot in vegan cooking to replace egg whites. So let's make it.
You see, it's not just a cooking show, it's also a science show. So anyway, so we're going to place our aquafaba in the stand mixer and we're going to break it until it becomes super fluffy and we have a soft peak. At this point, I'm going to add my sugar and I'm using some powder and not granulated because we want to make sure it's nice and light. When it's fully stiff, we're going to add our cream of tartar, which is going to help make it just like this. Very strong. It's not falling on my head. I can use a shaving cream. Anyway, we need to actually place them onto a baking sheet because we're not going to poach them like the other one. Wait, what? So what are we going to do then?
And I'm going to quickly bake them for 5 minutes at 350 Fahrenheit.
Ah, I see. He always have a solution for us. He's the best.
We're going to make the second type of caramel and we're going to assemble everything after that.
Alright, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting hungry, so let's get this show on the road. Alright, in a medium saucepan, I'm going to place my sugar and some water into a boil until it's caramelizing. In the meantime, I'm going to take my little fluffy egg whites out of the oven because it has been 5 minutes, and I'm going to let them cool down completely. Back to our sugar, we are almost there. We have the beautiful amber color, so I'm going to take them out of the heat. And now I'm going to use 2 forks, and I'm going to dip them into the sugar caramel, and I'm going to whisk them almost like if we were to fan it over a bowl that I've slightly greased so it doesn't stick until you have those beautiful what we call angel hair. Then we're going to take them off and place them onto a plate. Be sure you're very careful and you keep that nice and airy.
Alright, so we have our 2 types of meringue, we have our 2 types of crème anglaise, our 2 types of caramel or roasted almonds. So now let's assemble them.
We're now reaching the best part of the video for me because I'm getting so close to give it a taste. So I'm going to pour each of the crème anglaise into a plate, or in this case a cocktail glass because I want to be fancy. I'm going to place my first little flotante into my glass. So this one is the classic one, and I'm going to take the other one which is made with the aquafaba on top of my turmeric crème anglaise. I'm going to garnish with a bit of those toasted almonds, going to bring that crunch and nuttiness. And finally I'm going to place my caramel shard into my classic one and some of the nest of caramel on top of my vegan one.
And here we have it. If you enjoyed this recipe, please like, comment and subscribe. As always, the recipe will be in the description below. I'm going to try these bad boys, but let me know what you guys think of this video, everything I'm doing, what would you like to see me cooking next. Don't forget to subscribe because I see you watching my videos but you haven't subscribed yet, so please do that, I would appreciate it. Now it's time to try, so I will catch you on another episode.
Alright, so to be honest, they are both delicious, but also so different. So I don't want to say that one is better than the other. One is vegan, one isn't. It's really up to your diet and what you like. At the end of the day, life is beautiful and you should be able to eat whatever you want. So I will see you soon.